Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 U.S. Open Initial Research Show. Quite an exciting finish to the RBC Canadian. Hopefully you came out on the right side of it with Rory and in all of your DFS contests. It was a mediocre week for me. Fortunately, Justin Rose went mayhem today and was on 59 watch, which saved a lot of my lineups. I had quite a bit of Tony Finau in the lineups that I did have going well, so him finishing second certainly helped, but would have been nice had he caught Rory. But Rory deserved to win. He played exceptional all week long. I tried to give it away a little bit on the back nine today, but he is in fine form. So is Tony Finau heading into the U.S. Open. So I want to hear about your entire weekend. How did you do? Did you have Rory and all that stuff? But we are ready for the third major of the four in the year. We are in Brookline, Massachusetts. So let's go ahead and get started. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there. It is going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player, especially in a week where with big contests, massive turnouts, majors generally bring in a lot of the crowd to play DFS. So now is a week that you really want to have Fantasy National on your side, in your court. Whatever analogy you want to use there, it's going to give you such a leg up. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the descriptions to the videos are links to my social media. It is where I place my betting cards for the week, and social media is also where I place my research throughout the week for any interesting golf content, any interesting golf research, baseball research. I've actually already found a pattern or two for U.S. Open winners dating back to 2012. So give me a link or give me a follow at the links in the descriptions if you want to see some of that research. And then finally, we're live. Chat's open, as you can tell as I'm fumbling through the intro here. But I do want to hear about your weekend. Did you have a lot of Rory and Tony Finau? Hopefully you ignored or stayed away from my 6K plays like Robert Garrigus. Vaughn Taylor made the cut to a pretty unexciting finish. Varner and Vegas the same. So let me know about your DFS contest this week and who you're looking forward to using at the U.S. Open this week. Since it is a major and the DraftKings prices are already out, I won't even fight it. I'm just going to have the DraftKings pricing tab in Fantasy National all week for you all. So jump in chat. Let me know what are you all wanting to see, what you're thinking about this week, how you think the course is going to play. So let's do our initial research for the 2022 U.S. Open. And we start with the tournament fact sheet for the U.S. Open this week. As I mentioned, we are in Brookline, Massachusetts at the Country Club, one of the original founding courses for the USGA, which I didn't know. So that's pretty interesting. The last major event to be held here was the Ryder Cup, I believe in 2015, and then the U.S. Junior AM was here in 2013, won by Matthew Fitzpatrick. So a little bit of a nugget of info there. Matt Fitzpatrick has played this course. He's won on this course, so just a little bit of a feather in his cap, if you will. But like I said, we are at the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts. Normally, the course plays to a par 72. This week for the U.S. Open, it is a par 70 that measures right at 7,250 yards. But that is a little bit deceiving in the sense that there's a lot of elevation change on this course. This looks like it's going to be a very, very fun week from a viewer's standpoint. A lot of blind tee shots, a lot of, for example, there's a couple of holes with 30 feet of elevation change from approach up to the green or hitting the tee shot down into the fairway. It just looks like a fun course to watch. So this is a bit misleading, as I believe the majority of the tee shots will play downhill on severe elevation changes. But I still don't think we're going to use any short yardage filters or short course filters. As a par 70, over 7,200 yards is pretty long for a par 70. So it's going to be a pretty darn good test, as every U.S. Open is. The greens are very, very small, only at 4,400 square feet. I believe the largest green here at the Country Club is about 6,500 square feet, and that's the largest. And these greens are quite slopey, and there are quite a few severe false fronts. So we will take a look at that here in a little bit. Not necessarily through Pro Visualizer. Again, with this being set up as a par 70 instead of a par 72, I'm not sure how much Pro Visualizer is going to help us, but I did make the course composition chart for you all. But small greens, a lot of rough. A lot of rough. There's only 29 acres of fairway, and there's 25 acres of primary rough. And this stuff is deep. It is luscious, thick. It is a U.S. Open course. It's going to be difficult if you are not in the fairway. Good luck trying to get out of that. Quite a few bunkers as well, and the bunkers are severely, just massively deep. Most of them being greenside bunkers. There are a couple of fairway bunkers that will absolutely come into play and force somebody to lay up and whatnot, but the majority of the deep bunkers and bunkers in general here at the Country Club are greenside, and they are going to be very difficult to play out of. There are 4 water hazards in play, with 4 holes with water in play. One of the back 9 par 4s really brings in a little lake, if you will, if a drive gets anywhere wayward to the right. Everything in the fairway slopes towards the water, so pretty fun look there. But 4 holes with water in play. We are on POA greens, which is a little surprising, seeing POA in the Northeast, but not terribly uncommon, especially on the PGA Tour, where at TPC River Highlands we have POA later on in the year. So POA greens, bent grass fairways, and then bluegrass and ryegrass in the rough. That's going to be it really for a GCSAA look at the Country Club in Brookline. The architect, there's been a lot. Most recently, Gil Hansen, 2019, just kind of restoring the course to its original idea, design, and whatnot. But there's a look at the Country Club from a GCSAA standpoint. Par 70, fairly long par 70, 7,250 yards, very small greens, lots of rough, 4 holes with water in play, and we're on POA. So with that, I'm going to come to Fantasy National, but first, before we go digging too far into it, let me bring up Microsoft Excel. So vision's going to get skewed here for a second. There is the course composition chart, if you will. Let me grab some notes here. Which reminds me, I have seen one field change so far. Martin Keimer is out. He has been replaced by David Lingmerth. So Martin Keimer is not playing, the 2014 U.S. Open champion, most recently on the Live Tour. But he is out. David Lingmerth is in. So what we have here, 4 par 3s, 2 of them fairly long, a middling length, and then a very, very short par 3. on the scorecard, originally listed at 131 yards, but it was very stated very apparently that you have as much as 33 yards of wiggle room here from tees, so front tees, back tees, whatnot, but a very short one listed on the scorecard. And then in the par fours, you have 6 from 450 to 500. That is a bit misleading as well. We'll go through the yardages here in a second, but the majority of them will play in this range, so we're definitely going to be looking at who plays par fours, 450 to 500 very well, but we're also going to be looking at this, so a bit of foreshadowing. But there is a drivable par 4 here at the Country Club. Measures 310 on the scorecard, and with no water in play, guys or players will be able to attack the green. The issue being on that hole is the severe bunkerage that protects the front of the green. So you have a very narrow window to run up probably a 3-wood for most players up the neck of the green. And if you fly the green, there is a pond beyond the green. So very risk reward, as most drivable par 4s are, but there is one legitimate drivable par 4, should be exciting. And then 2 shorter, 2 middle length, very long par 4s. And then the 2 par 5s, one at pretty short at 557, and then the other one is at 619. The 619 par 5 is going to be very fun, as you are hitting your second shot essentially straight up a hill. Think of Pebble Beach hole 6. I believe it's 6. The par 5 with next to the ocean on the right, the tree is kind of the aim point for your second shot. It's straight uphill. That is the par 5 here at the Country Club, and it's a true 3-shot par 5, as the notes said that if you don't find the fairway off of the tee, it's very likely you will not be able to get up the hill on your second shot. So going to be a fun hole to watch. Going to be an emphasis on fairways. Josh, hey bud, how are you? How was your weekend? Get that Millie. Yeah, didn't get a chance to play RBC this week. Well, hey, it was mildly unsuccessful is how I would say it. I had a lot of unexciting, uninspiring 6 of 6s players like Adam Hadwin, Johnny Vegas, guys that either made the cut on the number or just kind of toiled on the weekend. I had a little bit of Rory, not enough. So it was a mildly deficit weekend for me. But glad you could jump in, chat. Good to see you. Who are you thinking about this week here in what I'm assuming is somewhat your neck of the woods in Brookline, Mass. I know the Darnells in Connecticut. Was big on Cam Smith, saved money. Very good. Very good. He made the cut to a very uninspiring finish. But coming back to the holes here at the Country Club, I'm going to go through some of these very quickly. So the short par 3, as I mentioned, it's hole 11, measures to 131. You've got a 192 yard par 3. That's hole 6. Hole 6. Your other 2 par 3s are at 215, hole number 2, and hole number 16, 202. So you can see 202 and 192, they could probably be interchanged between these two here. You've got the aforementioned 310 yard drivable par 4. Then there is 2 par 4s in the short category. You have a 375, that's hole 7, and then hole 17 measures to 373, so right smack dab in the middle of this range. Probably not going to vary too much in terms of this bucket here. The middle length par 4s, you have a 427, that's hole 9, and then a 450. And I put the 450 in this bucket here. but clearly it's right on the cut, so it can go either way. So then let's talk about these long par fours. Okay, hole number 1, 488. Probably safe to say it's going to be in this bucket all 4 days. They could probably lengthen it if they wanted to. 499, hole 3. So that can easily play into this bucket here. Then the very next hole, hole 4, 493. So that easily can fall into this bucket. You have a 499 again, hole 10. So 2 499s easily can play into here. Then you have a 473, falls right smack dab in here. The 450, which I've put here, but it can easily stay in this bucket here. Then you have a 451, which technically falls into this bucket, but can go into both. But essentially what I'm saying is there's a lot of par 4s in the 490s. 2 of them measure at 499, so it's quite clear that you're going to have some very, very long par 4s here at the Country Club, which is no surprise. It's a U.S. Open. It's going to be difficult. But when you see that 6 of 12 par 4s are listed into this range here, it's a bit misleading just because of the lengths. And then finally the par 5s, as I mentioned, 557, hole 8, and then the true 3-shot par 5, hole 14, measures at 619. So I wanted to bring that up, explain it a little bit. Again, not going to go through Pro Visualizer with Pro Visualizer listing the course at a par 72. I didn't want to have to go through all of that shenanigans to bring in all the estimated approaches and all that. If we're going to look at proximity, it's 200 plus. That's what we're going to look at, because it's going to be long, it's going to be difficult. It's a U.S. Open. So anyway, there is the course composition chart that I make anytime Fantasy National doesn't have it. So I'm going to exit out of that, don't save, and then let's come back to Fantasy National and let's get a look at some of the guys who have been playing well lately or throughout the season and in some various filters. So let's go ahead and head straight into putting. And we know that we're on POA thanks to the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. There are not a lot of rounds for POA, at least since the start of the calendar year. So we're definitely going to have to expand this out. So let's go in the last 12 months and see how many rounds that gives us. It does not add probably nearly enough. So we're probably going to have to go back, I'm going to say 2 years, and then rein it back in to the start of 2021, because majority of the POA events are early in the year. I did not want 2020. So let's try January 1st of 2021. Okay, so in the past 18 months, just to get enough of a sample size, and I mean, still we have quite a few guys who don't even have double-digit amount of rounds. But just to get a big enough sample that guys have at least more than one tournament, your top POA putters in the past year and a half, those players are Adam Scott, Jason Kokrak, Mark Leishman, Louis, Sung Jae, Jonas Blixt, Mac Hughes, Satoshi Kodaira, Victor Hovland, and Kevin Kisner. So a very interesting list of names here. Jonas Blixt, if you're wanting to look at putting, his POA performance clearly very good. He's a good putter in general. The RBC Canadian was on bent. Surprising to see that already in. Excellent. So we can take a look at that if you all want to. I'm trying to think. That's past Palom, Pebble Beach POA. He gained 2.5. Farmers is POA 2.1. So yeah, decent stuff there from Jonas Blixt if you're wanting to look at putting. Let's see. Mackenzie Hughes, just a good putter. Victor Hovland, good in the POA putting. You can see here clearly his best surface. Both of these are bent. Let's see. Genesis gained 5. Not the Century. Okay, so a lot of that's coming from just the Genesis, and then later on back in 2021. All right, and then if we add the Fast and Lightning filters, again, that top 10 was just on POA at all, no speed filter. So if we add the speed filter to POA, so your best putters in the past year and a half, dating back to January 1st of 2021, your best Fast and Lightning speed POA putters are Adam Scott, Jason Kokrak, Mark Leishman, Jonas Blix, Louis Oosthuizen, Sung Jae, Satoshi Kodaira, Mac Hughes, Andrew Putnam now rises into the top 10, and Victor Hovland. Xander was 11th in total POA, or POA in general, 12th in Fast and Lightning POA. Kisner here falls out just barely, but a lot of the same top 10. So generally speaking, if you are good putting on POA, you're going to be good no matter the speed. So interesting stuff there. Let's see. Adam Scott's 15 rounds. You got the Farmers, the Genesis, the Travelers, and then the Genesis again this year. Okay. All right. Let's see. Maybe a couple other people here. Mark Leishman, 18 rounds. Same tournaments, Farmers, Genesis, Travelers. Let's see. Sung to 18. Andrew Putnam. What are his from? Okay. So he had a little bit of the ATD at Pebble Beach, and then Genesis and Travelers, so no Farmers. But there you go. There's a look at some of the tournaments that have POA. So we might want to take a look at that in the Data Dive show tomorrow, figure out who has put those events very well. But there's a look at the putting. I do not want to add Bermuda. I want to remove POA. All right. So clearly one of the biggest things about a U.S. Open week, a major in general, but especially U.S. Open week, it's going to be very difficult. Everybody knows that. So I'm going to bring this in quite a bit. Let's go July 1st. Make it a full calendar year. Let's see. We got a lot of rounds here. Let's see. If I bring it to September the 13th, essentially, which is the start of the PGA Tour season, is there enough rounds? Yeah, it looks like it. You got majority of players that have double digits. Yeah, okay. So since July 1st of 2021, your top performers on or in rounds that are difficult to par, those players are Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Cam Smith, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, Shane Lowry, Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, and Aaron Wise. All right. Probably no surprise here on the majority of these players. These guys are competitive in all of the majors, the premier players in the world. The one that is a surprise is Aaron Wise to me, but he plays his best golf generally when it's difficult. So the Memorial this year, runner-up. The PGA, top 25. Let's see, what else was difficult? The Honda, he missed. API is difficult. He top 20. So generally speaking, he has played his events very well when it's difficult. What events are these coming from? So you've got the Memorial, the PGA. The second round of the RBC Heritage was difficult. The Players, API, Honda, Houston. Okay. So there you go. Yeah, top 10 in strokes gained total when it's difficult. Aaron Wise. I don't think we're going to go too much into, there's nothing for Architect. I haven't looked at Wind yet. We'll do that tomorrow if it need be. I don't think I'm going to do much with course length. So while we're here with difficult, let's see who the best iron players are when it's difficult. So your top strokes gained approach players when it's difficult. Those players are Cam Smith, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, Tom Hoagie, John Rahm, Mito, Aaron Wise, Webb Simpson, Rory, and Will Zalatoris. So again, a whole lot of overlap here. Sam Burns falls out of the top 10. I believe it's Webb Simpson that rises. maybe it's Max Homa. I don't remember Max Homa being here for strokes gained total. No. So Webb and Max Homa. Somebody's going to turn $15 into $1 million. Yeah, yep. That is that's the beauty of the DraftKings model, is that it is so top heavy that and another thing too is all it takes is one lineup. You don't have to submit 150. It just takes one lineup. It takes the perfect lineup, but it takes one lineup. That's all you need. $15 turn into $1 million. I think that's a fairly good return on investment. I'm not a math guy or anything, but that seems pretty good to me. So there's the top players, top strokes gained approach when it's difficult. In the same vein, let's look at around the green. We know that it is going to be difficult. We're going to definitely look at scrambling when it's difficult. We're going to look at sand saves, all that stuff. So your top strokes gained around the green players when it's difficult. You have Lucas Herbert, Tommy Fleetwood, Billy Horschel, Siwoo Kim, Taylor Gooch, Francesco Molinari, Wyndham Clark. Had a fantastic RBC Canadian. Sunday kind of fell back a little bit, but he played it exceptionally well. HV3, Jordan Spieth, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Again, same old names here you would expect. Taylor Gooch doesn't get enough credit for how good he is around the green. Siwoo, Billy Horschel, Jordan Spieth does Jordan Spieth things. Fitzpatrick's the same. So I believe that's all we're going to look at in terms of on the kind of the umbrella or the main page. So let's start looking into a couple of the specifics here. And first, we're going to start with birdies and bogeys. And at the end of the show tonight, I'm going to show you what I've gathered as far as some data around birdies gained versus bogeys avoided for the U.S. Open. But what I've seen so far is majority of the time you're going to want to avoid bogeys as opposed to gain birdies. So we'll take a look at all of them. And I'm not even going to mess around. Let's just go ahead and add the difficult filter here. So when a round is difficult, your top players at avoiding bogeys since the start of the PGA Tour season. Those players are Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rory, Sung Jae, Taylor Gooch, Seamus Power, first time we've said him tonight, Justin Thomas, Corey Connors, Cameron Tringale, first time we've said him tonight, Scotty Scheffler, and Tom Hoge. So those 11 there. All right. Good stuff there. Seamus Power, great at avoiding bogeys when it's difficult. You can see here he much prefers, or at least he's the best, his best. He's at his best when it's difficult. He's generally good on bent. He's just generally a good putter. Let's see some of his putting metrics. Missed the cut at the Genesis, but he gained the Pebble Beach, top 10 this year. He gained 4. Let's see, what else is there? The Genesis Farmers, he didn't play. Travelers last year. Travelers, he lost a half. Still top 20, but lost a half. Okay. So again, probably going to do that tomorrow. Try to gather some of these POA putting statistics for you all. Try to organize it neatly, or as neatly as I can as a messy data person. But there's a look at your top bogey avoiders. I'm going to skip birdie's game for a second. Let's just take a look at opportunities, and then we'll kind of go across, see who's good in all three. So your top players at giving themselves opportunities when it is difficult. Those players are Cam Smith, Cameron Young, Will Zalatoris, Mito, Tom Hoge, Billy Horschel, Rory, Colin Morikawa, HV3, Scotty Scheffler, and Daniel Berger. If you want to look at players that are good at all three, opportunities, birdies gained, and bogeys avoided, you've got Cam Smith, first in opportunities, first in birdies, 12th in bogeys. That's very, very strong. Cameron Young, second, 21st, and 31st. It's pretty darn strong. Will Zalatoris, third in opportunities, first in birdies, but 47th at avoiding bogeys. Mito, 4th, 9th, and 45th. Here's a very strong one. Just like Cameron Smith, Rory, 7th in opportunities, 4th in birdies, 3rd in bogeys. I imagine that's probably the top combination. You could probably argue Cameron Smith as well, 1st and 1st, and then a 12th. Let's see. Harold Varner's not bad. 9th in opportunities, 12th in birdies, 35th in bogeys avoided. Scotty Scheffler, no surprise here, 10th, 3rd, and 10th. Okay. So there's a few players that are good in all three. Again, this is all on the difficult metric. Okay. I know for a fact that Eagles aren't going to be a big deal. They generally aren't in a U.S. Open. If you get an Eagle, it's you're gaining quite a bit on the field. So if anything, I'm going to look at opportunities gained this week, birdies gained, and bogeys avoided. And again, we'll scrutinize that very heavily tomorrow in the Data Dive show. I'll show you some later tonight in Excel. But there's a look at that tab really in general. Again, not going to do much. There's nothing to do with Architect. I'm not going to do course length. Yeah, it's all based on the difficulty. We move to fairways and greens. This is going to be a pretty important tab, I think, because I have the difficult filter still on. Let's go ahead and look at sand saves, scrambling, maybe even some greens in regulation. So if you are interested, I don't know if I'm going to use greens in regulation when it's difficult. I've done it before. It's just too early in the week for me to decide if I'm going to use the difficulty filter on this stat. But your top greens in regulation game players when it's difficult. Those players are Rory, Jon Rahm, Corey Connors, Luke List, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Rogers, Shane Lowry, Sung Jae, DJ, Will Zalatoris, Aaron Wise, and Mito Pereira. So the top 12 there. So players that are very good at greens and the other two, you've got Rory, 1st in greens, 9th in sand saves when it's difficult, and 10th in scrambling when it's difficult. Shane Lowry, 7th in greens, 30th sand, 3rd in scrambling. Sung Jae, 8th, 21st, and 7th. Corey Connors, 2nd, 19th, and 19th. Pretty darn strong. Justin Thomas, 16th in greens, 4th in sand saves, 6th in scrambling. Fitzpatrick, 20th in greens, 7th in sand saves, 1st in scrambling. A lot of good numbers here. So that's sorted by greens in regulation when it's difficult. Let's look at sand saves when it's difficult. Your top players in sand saves gained when it's difficult. It's Brian Harmon, Patrick Reed, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Thomas, Lucas Herbert, Sebastian Munoz, Matt Fitzpatrick, Taylor Gooch, Rory McIlroy, and Wyndham Clark. And then your top scramblers when it's difficult. Matt Fitzpatrick, Billy Horschel, Shane Lowry, Sebastian Munoz, Lucas Herbert, Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Aaron Wise, Cameron Young, and Rory. So, all right, good stuff. We'll see how much we want to put weight in to these different metrics tomorrow. I'm going to remove the difficulty filter, but I am going to look at fairways, maybe even some driving distance, because I have noticed that driving distance is a pretty key factor for a U.S. Open. Surprisingly, even when courses are short, distance is going to matter. So let's take a look at first fairways. Your top players at hitting fairways, no filters, no difficulty, no difficult to hit fairways, easy to hit fairways, anything, just your top fairways gained players since the start of the PGA Tour season. Brian Stewart, Brian Harmon, Abraham Ancer, Satoshi Kodaira, Billy Horschel, Mito, Siwoo, Corey Connors, Joel Damon, and Sebastian Munoz. Of those 10, only 2 are above half or better than 50% in the field. In distance, that's Mito and Sebastian Munoz. If you come down here just a bit, you got John Rahm, who's 3rd in distance, 15th in fairways. That combination is not going to get beat. That is elite on both levels. Come down a little bit further, Cameron Young, 4th in distance, 29th in fairways. Very, very good on both. Max Homa, 24th and 27th. Very good at both, just not elite at either. Okay. And then if we sort by distance, again, this is since the start of this PGA Tour season, so you'll understand why somebody's not in there. But your top distance performers off the tee: Wyndham Clark, Rory, John Rahm, Cameron Young, Callum Tarrant, Kurt Kitayama, Justin Thomas, Minwoo Lee, Will Zalatoris, and Luke List. You can see here Bryson 12th. It's just not been healthy. He hasn't played a lot. So they're your top distance players. And we'll look and see how important distance is later on in Microsoft Excel. So there's a look of that tab. And again, a whole lot more scrutiny we'll go into tomorrow night for the Data Dive show. Let's go ahead and look at 200 plus proximity, and then we'll figure out if it's going to be very important this week. I have a feeling it's going to be one of these two. I would lean 200 plus, although you could make an argument for total procs as well. I just don't know where I'm going with proximity yet. But let's just take a look at proximity 200 plus. It's a major. It's long. It is what it is. You're going to be hitting some long approaches. So your top performers at approach shots from 200 plus yards since the start of this PGA Tour season: Will Zalatoris, Gary Woodland, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, John Rahm, Shane Lowry, Hideki, DJ, Kurt Kitayama, and Aaron Wise. So Kitayama has started to appear quite a bit in these filters. Let's take a look at Kurt Kitayama and see what he has going on here. So he has generally not putt well. He's not been good in the wind. Not great when it's difficult. Yet he keeps popping on some of these difficulty filters. So the Memorial was difficult. Didn't play fantastic. Charles Schwab was difficult. Wells Fargo was difficult. The top 15. Now the Mexico was easy. The Honda was very difficult. Okay. And he top 5 there. So he hit a little bit of form here in February through maybe May, middle of May, but was pretty darn poor before the top 5 at the Honda. All right. Let's take a look and see where his 200 plus proximity is coming from here. So Prox 200 is this column here. Well, he's been pretty darn solid at all of his rounds, really. The Memorial wasn't great in round 2, but he's steadily been gaining quite a bit here. Mexico, very good. Wells Fargo was very good. You come back here a little bit. The Honda, he was good from that distance. He had one bad round here at the Sanderson Farms from the distance, but he's generally been pretty good from 200 plus. Okay. All right, there's Kitayama, at least in the 200 plus. I think the last thing I want to cover specifically in Fantasy National, let's take a look at the par 4s, and especially since we saw just the amount of long par 4s there are from 450, 500, and 500 plus. So I'm going to go ahead and sort on strokes gained par 4, and we're going to emphasize the longer 2 ranges here. So your top strokes gained par 4 players, no length, no filter, just your top performers on par 4s since the start of the PGA Tour season. You got Justin Thomas, Rory, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Cameron Young, Brian Harmon, Cameron Smith, Sungjae, Shane Lowry, Joaquin Niemann, and Billy Horschel. Now, of those players, you've got quite a few who are top 10 in 450 to 500. So Justin Thomas is 5th in 450 to 500. Rory is 1st. John Rahm 7th. Cameron Young 3rd. Sungjae 10th. Shane Lowry 2nd. Billy Horschel 9th. So all those players I just listed were top 10 in total strokes gained par 4 and in par 4s 450 to 500. So let's see here. And then in the 500 plus, I mean, you can't really beat Rory. Second in strokes gained par 4 total. First in par 4s 450 to 500. And first in 500 yard plus par 4s. I'm pretty sure that's not going to get beat. I think there's only one combination of numbers that might beat this. I don't think it's going to happen. So Rory, very good at the par 4s here and in general here at the country club. Otherwise, you've got some guys here that are either very good at one of the ranges and not very good at the other, or just kind of middling. I shouldn't say middling good, but not elite. For example, you've got John Rahm here, 4th in par 4 total, 7th in par 4s 450 500. Great so far, elite, but 50th in 500 plus, which is by no means bad. It's still in the upper half of the field, but it's nothing to the level of Rory, first, and second. Justin Thomas, 1st, 5th, and 55th. Brian Harmon, 4th, 28th, and 39th. Good, but not elite. 9th and 28th from Billy Horschel. Probably about as close as you're going to get to elite. So, top 10 I would consider elite. You might disagree, but I'll say top 10's elite, and then maybe, top 30 is good to very good, I think would be fair. Okay, here's one down here. Let's see. You got Sebastian Munoz, top 20, so 20th in total strokes gained par 4, 4th from 450 to 500, 11th in 500 plus par 4s. And then Seamus Power, 24th in total par 4s, 13th at 450 to 500, 11th in 500 plus. All right. I don't think there's much that we're going to do with par 3s and par 5s until we really scrutinize and take a look at some of that data tomorrow. In fact, before we go to Excel, here I'm going to bring up the tournament history tab for you all. I've went ahead and sorted this by strokes gained total. Again, this is just going back to 2017, and this 2021 here is from the fall U.S. Open in the super season, when the 2020 U.S. Open was pushed back because 2020 was the year that it was. So it's not a typo. It's just because it fell into the 2021 super season. But your top strokes gained player in the past 5 years, no surprise, it's Brooks. He's top 5 every single U.S. Open that he has played in the past 5 years. Louis is second. Xander third. You can see Xander's all top 10s. Let's see, your defending champion, John Rahm, actually missed 2 cuts in 17 and 18, and then tied for third in your defending champion. Rory, same thing as John Rahm. He missed the cuts in 2017 and 2018, and then 3 straight top 10s. Bryson has the win in 2020. 2 straight top 5s from Harris English. I am very, very low on Harris English. You just got to show me some health. Webb played pretty darn well up until last year. Let's see, Gary Woodland, winner at Pebble Beach in 2019, but has not played well since. All right. And then at the other end of the spectrum, guys who just have not played the U.S. Open very well in the past 5 years. Surprisingly, Keegan Bradley, third lowest in strokes gained total at the U.S. Opens in the past 5 years. He's missed the cut 3 out of 4 times, and then a clunker. All right. Let's see. Taylor Gooch, he's 1 for 1 with a clunker. Cameron Young, 0 for 2. Now, I think Cameron Young is quite a bit a different player than he was, especially in 2019. And then, 2021, probably, I mean, he's gained a lot of confidence. I think Cameron Young is going to be a whole lot better than this. Let's see, you've got Kevin Na. He's 3 for 4 and missing the cut, so he's only 1 for 4 with a middling finish. Corey Connors, 0 for 3 in U.S. Opens. Okay. Let's see, Victor Perez, the Frenchman, 0 for 2. Cameron Smith is negative in strokes gained total at U.S. Opens, 2 for 4, a middling and a very clunker of a made cut. Joel Damon, 0 for 2. So there's a look at some of the players who have not played the U.S. Open well in the past 5 years. The reason I went to that is I was going to go ahead and bring up some leaderboards here. That one happens to be Bryson. So let's do John Rahms. And John Rahms was on POA at Torrey Pines last year. So let's just kind of get a feel, especially in the putting department. We'll get a couple of years data here. Don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. But you'll see here putting fairly important last year at Torrey Pines. You had Louis putt the daylights out. I mean, John Rahm was very good, but you can obviously tell it's a U.S. Open. You need your strokes gained approach. You just have to be on with your irons. You have a little bit of some negatives here, but then you got a pretty good long streak of high finishes. So maybe putting is a little bit more important. When you sort on strokes gained putting, you have a top 10, 2 middlings, runner-up. I mean, it's okay, I guess, in terms of correlation. I wouldn't say it's the strongest by any means, because if you look at strokes gained approach, that's some pretty heavy. Look at all these single digits up here. Now you do have the miscut from Abraham Answer, and then a middling finish from Ches Reavie, but there's a whole lot of single digits and great finishes up here. Let's see. So we'll try to see if we can remember some of these names here. Scotty Scheffler, Adam Hadwin, Louis, Patrick Rogers, Bryson. Bryson generally putts very well on POA as it is. Ian Poulter, Fratelli, JT. So in 2019, the year that Gary Woodland won, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, come back out. So 2019, when Gary Woodland won at Pebble Beach, let's take a look at some of these. So Gary Woodland, probably one of your highest in strokes gained putting. Yeah, he was 4th. So there's a little bit more correlation from 2019 putting than last year's. You got Louis, Webb Simpson, Putnam was a middling finish, but Gary Woodland, Justin Rose, Xander, Chesson Hadley, all of these guys top 10 the U.S. Open. But let's see if we can find some of these same names here. Let's see. Bryson again. I mentioned he's very good at putting on POA. Ian Poulter, even though he missed the cut in 2019, was very good at putting both U.S. Open tournaments on POA. Don't see anybody straight off the top of my head. Generally, Xander's pretty good at POA. I'll double check it for you, but I mean, him being a California guy, I imagine POA comes naturally to him, or at least more naturally. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and go to Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to switch the view one more time for you all, so bear with me. We'll go to Excel, and I'm going to bring up this tab here. And this is the color-coded strokes gained total. It's what I call my early look file, but these are the strokes gained total broken out by the various statistics. Now, the difference with the U.S. Open is because the course rotates, I only grabbed these statistics in the par 3s, the par 4s, the par 5s. I mean, even the proximities really is kind of hard to gauge just because it's not the same course year over year. So this is dating back to 2012 when Fantasy National has every year of data in there. And I've sorted this by lowest average finish. So we have as many as 10 tournaments. So you can see here, like Webb Simpson, he's 10 for 10 at making the cut. Average finish of 43rd. He did win in 2012, but 10 for 10 in making the cut. DJ, 9 for 10 in making the cut. Patrick Reed, 8 for 8 in making the cut. Louis, 8 for 9 in making the cut. So that is what these columns are representing. The number of times played, the average finish across, for example, across the 8 tournaments Brooks played, across the 10 that DJ played, so forth, and then the missed cuts. So let's take a look here. Since it's already sorted by average finish, you can see just the high volume of strokes gained approach, the high volume of green, the deep green that strokes gained approach will play. Guido played very, very well last year at Torrey Pines. It's only one tournament. So in fact, let me go ahead and filter out the players that have only played once. That way it removes some of those outliers. I think 2 should be enough. So you got Xander, Hovland here in strokes gained approach. There's Colin Morikawa. He's actually missed the cut twice in U.S. Opens. What was his top performance? Be interested to go back. It's escaping me right now. There's Patrick Cantlay. He's done his mostly around the green and putting. Let's see, Hideki, doing Hideki things, ball striking it great, not putting. We saw Patrick Rogers pop a few times. He's a lot of putting on POA. Sung Jae, all on the approaches. So there's a look at the strokes gained approach for the top finishers. But what I'm really going to want to do, and I'm going to take this filter off just to show it, distance is going to matter. DJ, winner, you see all the deep green. He's probably one of the leaders in driving distance. I mean, I see a Spaniard way down here off screen. He's only played it a few times. But DJ, very, very good in the distance department. Brooks, no surprise, always high in the distance, winner twice. Let's see. Who else has won? Justin Rose has won. Where is he? So he's a little bit higher in the distance as well. Here at 11.5, John Rahm, distance. So distance is going to matter. Greens. But as I was talking about earlier, with the bogeys versus the birdies, you can see here there's a whole lot of more propensity of green and deep green in the bogeys as opposed to the birdies. It's not to say that the birdies gained isn't important. It absolutely is. But your top performers generally are avoiding bogeys as opposed to gaining birdies, especially when it's difficult. Victor Hovland, Brooks here is about even, slightly ahead in birdies. DJ, just a lot of avoiding bogeys. Hideki, the same. Jim Furyk's the same. Let's see, where's Justin Rose? There's John Rahm. He's been doing it with the birdies. Justin Rose, well, had him. He was up here. There he is, right above. He's been doing it with birdies. So, I mean, they're both important, but I only brought in those stats just due to the fact that the course rotates. But one of the bigger things that I have is I've gathered the winners' data coming in to the U.S. Open. Anything highlighted here in yellow signifies a difficult tournament, so I can remove that if it gets confusing. But anything I have highlighted here in yellow is difficult. That was for my own research. But I want you to notice here, John Rahm, always positive in distance. Bryson, no explanation needed, but always positive in distance. Gary Woodland, positive, always in distance. Brooks, DJ. Now, Jordan Spieth, even though he was negative in relation to the field that week, when he won the U.S. Open, he was still positive the majority of the time. Martin Keimer was positive in distance that week and majority of the time. The one exception has been Webb Simpson. He has never been a distance player. Sorry, let's scroll down for you. Webb Simpson never relied on distance. He was slightly negative that week, but he's a bit of an outlier in this case because you see here, I mean, all the green and high green in the driving distance. And what will really set up my birdies and bogeys argument here, just in the past few years, Jon Rahm, a lot more bogeys than birdies. Again, both important, but more bogeys than birdies. Bryson, more than double, so 8.8 in bogeys, 4.2 in birdies. The same goes for Gary Woodland in 2019. 2018, Brooks, not quite double, but still more. Now in 2017, he was slightly higher in birdies. But look at this difference here from DJ in 2016. I mean, my goodness. 1.2 at gaining birdies, but 12.4 in avoiding bogeys. 15, Jordan Spieth. Martin Keimer, higher in the bogeys. The one outlier in this is Justin Rose. He gained more birdies than avoided bogeys by a significant margin. But he's the one outlier. This is why I'm going to be focusing on bogeys as opposed bogeys avoided versus birdies gained. They're both important. I might even use both in my final mixed condition model, but most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, it has been bogeys avoided more than birdies gained by the U.S. Open champions. Let's see, other things that I've kind of noted here, or at least noticed. Greens obviously are going to be important. Let's take a look at fairways. I actually haven't done much looking at fairways gained and see if that's really a big deal. So Jon Rahm last year gained 1.5. He was kind of all over the place, really, that last season coming into it. Bryson was positive in gaining fairways, but he had some pretty bad form in that department coming in. Gary Woodland was positive and was everywhere. Now, Brooks in 2018 did not hit a lot of fairways. He did in 17, DJ in 16. Spieth, no distance and no fairways. So my line of thinking would be he putt and chipped the daylights out. So going back before 2019 is the last or the furthest back we have the specific data. U.S. Open didn't release strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, that kind of data until 2019. But what we can do is at least take a look at some of these performances from the players that were on POA. So Jon Rahm's year, last year Torrey Pines was on POA, gained 3.8. Gary Woodland gained 7.2 at Pebble Beach. Brooks in 2018, that was, I don't remember. I'll have to grab it tomorrow. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all these POA putting performances in the U.S. Opens, leading up to the U.S. Open, all that kind of stuff. Again, like I said, I was trying to do some difficulty metrics here. So I'll have some research posted to Twitter tomorrow explaining what I have seen so far in my research, trying to find patterns and whatnot from these U.S. Open winners. But I will bring you back to this tab here. Actually, you know what? I can go back and look. So Torrey Pines, 2019 Pebble Beach. Shinnecock Hills for Brooks in 2018. Oakmont was DJ. Jordan Spieth was Chambers Bay, 2015. Webb Simpson Olympic in 2012. That wasn't post. So 15, 16, 18, and 15, 16, 18, 19. So 15 Chambers Bay, Spieth, Oakmont, DJ, Shinnecock Hills, Brooks, Gary Woodland, and Jon Rahm. So there are your winners from that. These are the Fantasy National metrics measured for these courses each round. You can see generally difficult. You might sneak in an average difficulty round every once in a while, but rough's always long. Generally speaking, the greens are going to be fast or lightning. With POA, I imagine they're more going to be fast than lightning, but you never know. Like Pebble Beach, I think will be a good little comparison. Yes, Pebble Beach is short, but it is POA. It was on the coast. I like Pebble Beach as a comparison for U.S. Open. I don't remember much of Marion. I can't say if this would be a good fit or not as for a comparison course. But I got a lot of research to do for you all tonight and tomorrow leading into the Data Dive show. I will leave you on this tab here so you can see the individuals metrics broken out. But Josh, it was good to see you again, or at least talk to you. Thanks for coming in to chat. Really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who tunes in, watches, and listens. In the comments, let me know how your weekend went. Did you have Rory? Was your DFS successful? What are you looking forward to this week? Do you have a player that you're keyed in on? Do you think there's going to be a standout 6K play? Is there a guy that everybody's talking about that you're fading? Let me know about all that stuff in the comments. But again, thanks for the support, tuning in, watching, listening. For all of the wagers you had this past week at the RBC Canadian, for all of the DFS contests you had at the RBC Canadian, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.